Hey, what's up guys, it's Kelly, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Acus for Week. If you find yourself enjoying this video, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, it really helps me out, and if you're new here and would like to see more of me, then please subscribe. Does it annoy me that A Court of Silver Flames does not have an abbreviation that forms a word in the same way that, say, Acotar does? Yes. Does that mean that I'm not going to keep saying it as if it is a comfortable word? No. I will keep saying Acus until the day I die, and I'm sorry for that. I'm deeply, deeply sorry for that. If you have not already figured it out by the title and the thumbnail and my makeup and this introduction, today I am reviewing A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. I have reviewed every book in the Acotar series so far, so if you are interested in going back and watching those, I'll leave my Sarah J. Maas playlist linked below and in the cards. But I've done a video review for every book in the series and I've matched my makeup to the cover every time, and it's just a fun little tradition for me now, so here we are. This video is going to be spoiler-free for A Court of Silver Flames, but obviously will not be spoiler-free for the 4 books leading up to this. It is book 5 in a series. Well, no, it's book 4 in the series, but there've been 3 books and a novella. It's a whole thing, you know, but if you're here and you're watching this, you probably know how the spiel goes. So if you have not yet read A Court of Silver Flames, consider this a safe space spoiler-wise. If you have read it and you would like to scream with someone about it, feel free to DM me on any platform, but I'm just warning people, I will be removing any public comments that have spoilers because I want all of my platforms to be a safe space for people who have not yet read the book. If you are interested in my spoilery thoughts, I have a spoilery reading vlog which will be going up on Thursday, so stay tuned for that if you have read the book and you want to hear my thoughts on absolutely everything in this beast of a book. Look at all those tabs. All of those tabs represent an update, represent me screaming about something, and I love it. I feel like tab flicking is like the ultimate ASMR for book lovers. So in case you've been living under a rock and you have not ventured onto the book side of the internet at some point in the last 2 years, this book follows Nesta, who is our main character from the beginning of the series, Feyre's sister, and Cassian, who is a feared, wonderful Illyrian warrior. Before I get into this review, I feel like it is important for me to say, I do not like Nesta. So from the moment that this book was announced, I knew that I would read it, obviously, because it's Sarah J. Maas and I love her and I love her writing and I love her world building, and I'm just trash for whatever she will give me. Honestly, she could give me her grocery list at this point and I would read it. So I knew that I would read it. However, I kind of flip-flopped between being excited about it and not being excited about it, because on the one hand, I don't like Nesta, and on the other hand, I really love Cassian. So I was like, I don't like Nesta, I don't want to read about Nesta. Because I don't like Nesta, I don't really ship Nessian, and I don't really want to read about Nessian, but I love Cassian and I want to read about him. So I had moments of being super excited for it because it was a new Sarah J. Maas book and Cassian, and I had moments of being really not excited for it because it was a Nesta book. However, I learnt my lesson with Tower of Dawn, which I delayed reading for a year because I wasn't particularly fond of Kale. By the end of that book, I really liked Kale, and Tower of Dawn ended up becoming one of my favourite books of the series. So I was not going to make the same mistake with A Court of Silver Flames. I was very kindly gifted this copy by the lovely folks over at Jonathan Ball, and I started devouring it as soon as it arrived. Also, if you have not seen my reel for this book over on my Instagram, please go and check it out because I am very proud, and it might be the greatest thing that I've ever done on the internet. I loved it. I loved this book so damn much. So let's get into my thoughts. So plot-wise, we kind of pick up where we left off. Nesta is living in squalor, drinking and fucking anything in sight, just not in a real good place in her life. And it kind of reaches a point where her family has had enough. And they're like, we're not gonna bankroll your alcoholism anymore, we're not gonna bankroll you like sleeping with anything that moves anymore. You've got to get your shit together or you can leave. It very much is a shape up or ship out scenario. So she's presented with an ultimatum. She can either move into the House of Wind and do Illyrian training with Cassian. She'll spend her mornings doing training. She'll spend her afternoons helping in the library beneath the House of Wind, helping the priestesses in whatever way they need her. Her other option is that she'll be dumped over the wall back in the human lands, which obviously she does not want, because as much as she is in mourning for her human life, she also knows that they will probably try to kill her. Like, she'll be shunned. There is no life for her left in the human lands. So she grudgingly agrees to go to this training with Cassian. Now, Nesta is obviously unhappy about this, as she has been unhappy about every other thing in her life. I mean, the synopsis says since she became High Fae and had her humanity taken away from her, but honestly, just like her whole life, she's not been a happy bunny, okay? Let's just be real about that. And being in this forced proximity with Cassian is doing nothing to help the situation, because the two of them just rub each other the wrong way, even though they want to rub each other the right way. Because as the back of the book says, her temper is not the only thing he ignites. He's also igniting a deep-seated spark of lust. And while the two of them are kind of battling their feelings for each other, the threat of war is looming. It's just this ever-present cloud gathering over them, because they know that Brialyn, who was one of the human queens, who was turned into a High Fae, but was turned into an old, withered crone, is out for vengeance. She wants to seek revenge for the fact that whatever Nesta stole from the cauldron meant that her immortality has been ruined, because she wanted to be immortal so that she could be young and beautiful forever, and instead she's an old withered crone and she's looking real gross. So there is this ever-present threat of Brialyn, who is starting to ally herself with ancient powers and also potentially with some of the Fae courts. But despite all that, the biggest battles that Nesta and Cassian are going to face are their inner and outer demons, and trying to accept themselves and each other as they are. When people ask me if they should read Throne of Glass or Acotar first, I always distinguish them as saying Throne of Glass is fantasy with romance thrown in. Acotar is fantasy romance with some plot to keep things interesting. And apart from in A Court of Frost and Starlight, I have not felt that as acutely as I did in this book. You could tell, 100% the main focus was on Cassian and Nesta's relationship, and there was all of this stuff building in the background, but it definitely took a backseat to the two of them getting hot and heavy. So I did find in this, the political and scheming sides of the plot were less prevalent than in the previous books. However, I'm really enjoying the direction that the plot and the, war and scheming and politics is all going. I'm so intrigued by it, and I like that it's, that there's a lot of romance, but I'm really enjoying where the story's going, and I'm really, really fascinated to see what's going to happen next. Although it's taken a backseat, I also feel like it's taken a more interesting turn. It's just so interesting to me how, every step that they take in their fight against Brialyn, they're, weighing up how this could affect their relationships with the other courts, with the other High Lords. Just all of the politics is going in such a good direction, and I'm loving it so much. But let's be honest, saying you like Acotar for the plot is like saying you go to Hooters for the wings. Genuinely, I saw someone say that they skipped over all the smutty parts, and I was like, why though? Why are you reading this series if you're not here for the smut? So let's talk about the smut. Sarah J. Maas said that this was going to be the steamiest book yet, and Homegirl did not lie. I was like, is it though? Because your books are quite sexy already. But no, the fact that they are promoting this fully now as an adult book rather than a young adult series, it was filthy. I would say do not go into this expecting the level of smut we've had thus far, like, it levels up. So admittedly, I didn't love it as much as I love, like, face and smut, but that's because I could read chapter 55 on repeat for the rest of my life and not get bored. So, like, for me personally, it wasn't as enjoyable because I didn't have as much of, like, an emotional connection to the characters and the situation as I have with face and. But on just, like, a technical level and, like, how sexy it was, the sexy times were real good. Like, real good. So, like, on the one hand, I wasn't expecting it to be any more smutty than her previous books, and was surprised that it was. But on the other hand, I was almost expecting it to be smuttier than it was. Like, I was expecting, not smuttier, but maybe kinkier. I was definitely expecting, like, a kink or two to come out. I was expecting, like, a some, like, light bondage or something, which didn't happen, and that's fine. Because, as I said, it was real good as it was. However, I am just putting it out there in case Sarah J. Maas ever watches this. I did once read a fanfiction, an Asriel one, where he used his shadows as bondage rope, and, like, I'm just saying, might not be a bad thing to explore. Anyway, that's about all I'm going to say about the steamy scenes, except just a fun little anecdote that I had said that I was nearing a steamy scene. Alan had asked for tea, so I was like, okay, well, I'm getting close to a steamy scene, so I'm gonna go get your tea now so that I don't have to stop in the middle of the steamy scene. And then I came back and, like, settled into reading again, and he said, I always know when you're reading a steamy scene because you suddenly look really annoyed. Like, I generally, I think, look quite annoyed when I read. I have resting bitch face, and it just amplifies when I read, but apparently also, I think because I have read smut in public enough times that I'm, like, I'm overly in control of my face to the point where I now just look, like, pissed to make sure that I don't look aroused. So let's talk characters, and I'm going to start with the elephant in the room, which is Nesta. The thing is, I have never liked Nesta. I didn't like her when she was human, and I didn't like her when she turned fae, and I understand that she's been through a lot, but I don't agree with using that as an excuse for the way that she's behaved. And she does grow a lot during this book. She has a lot of revelations about why she is the way that she is, and why she has acted the way that she acted, and we learn a lot about her upbringing, and that was all very nice, but I didn't need any of it. I have never had any problems understanding Nesta. I think I've always fully understood why she is the way that she is. I've always understood her motivations, and I've always understood the, like, very severe mental health issues that she's had. I've just never felt that any of those things justified her actions. So there were a couple of scenes in this book that were clearly meant to be, like, breakthrough scenes, and honestly I felt like they were aimed at the people that don't like Nesta, to be like, see, she's actually, like, she's a good person, this is why she's always been like this. And I was like, this is all very nice, but I don't, this is not for me, I don't need this. I've always understood all of this about her, and I still don't like her. That being said, by the end of this book, I no longer hated her. Like, I don't hate her anymore. She's there, and she's fine. She will never be one of my favorite characters. I don't think I will ever love her, but I no longer hate her. So that's a plus. So she does develop a lot throughout this book, and she does grow a lot. And I want to stress again, if you are concerned about reading this because you don't like Nesta, or you don't want to read it because you don't like Nesta, I think as long as you love Cassian, it'll be fine, because genuinely it's just written in such a way that even as she was doing things that annoyed me, I was still enjoying the reading experience. Which brings me to Cassian, my precious angel Cassian. I love him so much, and what I really enjoyed in this book was getting to see a much deeper insight into him and into his psyche and into why he thinks and feels some of the things that he thinks and feels. And there were so many moments in this that just broke my heart, both in his interactions with other characters and also just revelations about his past and revelations about his own feelings about himself. Like, oh, I love him so much, and there were so many times that I just wanted to crawl into this book and give him a hug and be like, you are so worthy and you are so wonderful and I love you so much. And it physically hurt me that I couldn't do that. But I do want to say just about the inner circle, Asriel provides some amazing comic relief. Like, there are so many moments in this where he just made me laugh. And he wasn't even being particularly funny, but he's so dry and he's so sassy when he wants to be. And I just loved all of his moments, and I'm so excited for his book. His book is going to devastate me. It is going to break my heart because I suspect that he has even more self-loathing than Cassian or even Rhys does. But I'm so ready for his book because I love him so much. And just every moment, every time that he was on the page was just, we love to see it. Last character I just want to quickly mention is Elaine. I might be starting to like her. I mean, I don't love her. She's not like a fun, exciting character to be around. She's real boring. But she actually starts growing a bit of a backbone in this book. Like, we love to see it. She had some spunk and she had like some oomph and some backbone. She had moxie. She's getting moxie. And you know what? If I'm gonna have to sit through a whole book of her, I'm gonna be glad for that moxie and for the fact that she's becoming a bit more interesting. Moving on to writing. Her writing is just getting better and better and better, and I am constantly amazed by this woman and her ability to churn out work in the way that she does. The writing in this book was just so compelling and made me feel so many things. I felt so many emotions while I was reading this book. So many, guys, so many. And when you read the acknowledgements, you can see that a lot of the talk about mental health was actually quite like prevalent to her life and what she was going through. And I think you can feel that a lot of the very intense emotional stuff that the characters go through, someone that hasn't gone through that, someone that hasn't experienced those feelings, I don't think would be able to write about them with the same depth and with the same intensity. And I loved it. Like, as someone who has dealt with severe anxiety and very severe depression and insane imposter syndrome, there were just so many moments of this that I related to so hard. You know, even there were moments of Nesta's character arc that really spoke to me, and just she did such a good job with the writing, and also just the general like descriptions and the prose was beautiful. And as I said, the sex is just getting like even filthier and was great. And as I was reading it, I was like, this should be ridiculous, like this should be so cringy, but it's just so good and so compelling, and I love it. And then lastly, I just want to talk about like the world building and magicalness of it. So world building, like, we've already had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages exploring this world. And we know the world, we know Valaris, we know Illyria. So for the most part, there wasn't that much physical world building that went into this book. There were one or two areas that we explored in greater detail than we have in previous books. So we got to explore the middle a bit, which is the area where Under the Mountain is, and we got to explore a bit more of Illyria. But I would say the core of the world building in this was finding out a lot more of the history of Prythian and the history of the Fae, and I was just lapping all of it up. I love how expansive the world is becoming, and just based on like where other characters were and the political intrigue and the direction that all of that's taking that I was talking about earlier, I think that the coming books are going to expand on the world physically a bit more. So like for a lot of this book, Morrigan is on trips to Valahan, which is a Fae part of the continent. It's in the fairy realms of the continent. I'm just, like, at this point I'm just assuming we're getting a book from her perspective, but I'm assuming that when we get there we'll definitely be spending more time in Valahan, and this is all of these trips that she and Asriel are going on are just in aid of, you know, strengthening allegiances and finding out information and finding out what people are plotting and trying to get sympathizers on the continent, but also trying to figure out what's brewing on the continent that could bring war to their shores. And it's getting so complex, and I love it. And yeah, I'm very excited to see how the complexity of the world and the mythology is going to translate into like physical world building later on in the series. So yeah, I'm just assuming at this point that Moore and Asriel are both getting books, but also apparently in Sarah J Maas's tour live stream that she did last night, she mentioned that she is working on a book for a third sister, which presumably is Elaine, unless they have a sister a secret sister no one knows about. Wouldn't that be a curveball this late in the game? I'm really hoping that this is not supposed to be the end. I'm hoping it's not going to be like, these are the tales of the Acheron sisters, because no, because I want my Asriel and Morrigan books. So if we're going to get an Elaine book first, that's fine. And okay, worst case scenario could be an Elaine Asriel book, but I still want a Morrigan book. I'm expecting at least 2 more books, Sarah. So on the whole, I really liked this book. I loved this book. In fact, I did give it 5 stars because it was just honestly flawless, despite all of the flaws that I found with Nesta. It was just perfection in every way, and I'm so intrigued by where the story is going to go from here. It's not my favourite book in the series. Nothing is ever going to top Akamath unless she releases another Faysand book, but I did love it. Like, I genuinely really loved it. At this point my order probably goes like Akamath, Acotar, Akaphas, Akasv, and Akawar. That's probably the way things are at the moment. So not my fave, but just such a strong book on every technical level, and I really loved it. It just didn't have like the emotional oomph that something like Akamath had for me. And that largely was because of Nesta, because it definitely had the emotional oomph for Cassian, because I just love him so much. So let me know in the comments what you thought of A Court of Silver Flames. Again, please don't leave spoilers. If you want to talk spoilery thoughts, then feel free to DM me on any platform and we can scream. I'm ready, but I do want this to be a safe space for people who have not yet read the book. So no spoilers, but let me know your non-spoilery thoughts. If you haven't read it yet, then let me know if I've convinced you that you should pick it up. And tell me who your favourite Acotar character is. I think you can guess mine. If you have enjoyed this video, then please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you aren't already. In the description you'll find links to all of my social media. That's my Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, as well as my blog. You'll also find links to my Patreon, my Redbubble, my Ko-fi account, and my online store, as well as my Blackwells affiliate link if you'd like to support me on any of those. But that is it for me today, and I shall see you all again very soon. Bye!
My life is grounded in